I realized that I actually wanted to get back into film scoring. I wanted to get into film scoring in the first place because I always loved films when I, like growing up. It's like, I mean, teaching a practical discipline, I always think that you have to be active in what you teach. I find music is best when you don't notice it. Like when you just, like when you are so immersed in the story that when people ask me, how was the music? I don't know, I just watched an amazing film. The beauty of scoring film, like, if you give one scene to 3 different film composers, it could be completely different and it could all work. Which is the scary part. If they like it right away, it's like, no, this can't be good yet. Super intense 2 weeks, and I was almost sad when it was over. And you fall in this like, okay, what am I going to do now? I try not to work for free anymore because like I've done that, and for a long time I always thought it was a problem that I didn't have that one way of composing. I think it's my first official soundtrack release as well, so I'm curious to hear what people think of it. And so right now, like, I just enjoy the process so much. You're not hired to write music, you're hired to create emotions.
Before we start the interview, if you could hit that subscribe button, it would help us out so much, and it costs you nothing. So what did you do before composing music?
I played music, so I played music all my life. I started violin when I was 7 years old, I think, because my sister got a guitar, my older sister.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw a photo of a violin, looked like my sister's guitar, and I just wanted to play violin. Then I was a little disappointed that it was so small compared to my sister's guitar, but I ended up playing for 10 years. And then I think when I was 10 or 11, I started playing clarinet, basically because in this small town where I grew up, they had a really good wind orchestra, or like a youth wind band, and I joined them, and it was basically like the whole community's social life was around playing in the orchestra there.
Nice.
So I picked up clarinet, that became my main instrument, and then I studied clarinet and produced music, like I studied music production at some point as well. And during that time I also wanted to compose and wanted to be more creative than just play what someone else had written. And so then I started composing music for the concert hall, basically autonomous music, and then at some point I realized that I actually wanted to get back into film scoring. I wanted to get into film scoring in the first place because I always loved films when I, like growing up. I always thought it was cool, like to see the composers like in a movie theater. And I also thought it was cool that nobody would know you, but you still had like influence on the emotions they would be feeling. So
that's so true.
Yeah, so then I went into studying music composition context and sound design, and
amazing. And then you taught as well for a while?
I was professor at the University of Lethbridge when I first moved to Canada. Was for a job in Lethbridge. I didn't know what Lethbridge was. I was working in broadcast, and my Spanish colleague gave me this job description, basically just saying, there's something for you. You have a master's degree and you like teaching. And I was like, what is Lethbridge? I Googled it. It's a place in Canada. And 3 months later, I moved to Canada on a 3-year contract. And now I've been here for 14 years.
No way.
And at some point, I changed universities. And so.
Nice. And then you got back into film composing.
Yeah,
what made you make the switch back into film composing?
I always did it because, like, I mean, teaching a practical discipline, I always think that you have to be active in what you teach. And that's why I just continued music production as much as I could. But it was also very tiring because I did like a full-time job, more or less, like all the teaching, all the servers, and a bit of research as well. And then I tried to get as much industry experience still that I wanted to pass on to my students. So
2 full-time jobs.
Yeah, pretty much, yes. So, and then at some point I also realized that I wanted to be one of my students because they got to do all the cool stuff that I gave them for assignments. And like, I want to do this. So that's when I got back more into like doing this stuff rather than talking about it, teaching. So I still teach a few students, I still enjoy teaching. It's still a lot of fun.
Okay, nice. Do you do more like mentorship now rather than like teaching?
Yeah, like I have a couple of graduate students over at the Royal Conservatory in The Hague. That's where I studied as well. So they call it professional integration coaching. So I basically help them develop ideas for bringing what they do outside the walls of the conservatory. So it's really fun. I basically just coach them, I give them some advice, and then I teach a couple of online courses, one down in Argentina and another one over in BC.
Nice. So, you have no problem keeping busy then.
No, it's like, I mean, it's also like it keeps me up to date on things when I have to think about, okay, what do people use now to do their jobs?
Yeah,
instead of just like following that lesson plan and the schedule. I think that's
true. That's true.
And I learn more from the students than
Yeah.
They learn from me. That's what I always say.
I love that. That's awesome. And for working on a film, do you have like a specific genre that you like to work with the most?
In terms of film genre?
Yeah,
or
yeah.
music?
Film genre.
I think anything that has story where the music can actually do something. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that like I don't like the wallpaper music where it's just there to like
Right. Fill up
have
space.
music.
Yeah.
Instead of like driving the emotions.
Right.
So like, I mean, recently I've done a couple of documentaries, like a horror film. I just did like a, what was it, like a comedy thriller or something, which was fun. So yeah, I don't think really, I don't think I have a preferred genre. It's like
Yeah, just as long as there-
anything.
As long as you
That
can
needs music.
contribute to the story.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Nice. I like that. How many instruments can you play?
I would say
All
only,
of them?
No, only clarinet. I would say. I mean, I took lessons in saxophone.
Yeah.
I actually just got my violin from Germany over here because I want to use it for composing. I would not play it in front of anyone, like just to create sounds. I would say.
That's hilarious.
Same with piano. Like I mean, I play most of the stuff on piano, but
Yeah.
I would not play it in front of people because, yeah, like I think once you study classical performance, then you have like a little bit of a level that you want to reach before you go out there and actually play for
That's
someone.
fair. That's
So-
fair. That's
so yeah, I would say like clarinet, I still dare to play in front of people, and the rest is just for myself in the studio while composing.
nice. That's all right. You're allowed to keep some things for yourself.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know?
Like I mean, my dog walks upstairs as soon as I start practicing clarinet. Like
Oh,
he
really?
just gets up and like, okay, so I guess I need to practice more.
That's hilarious. That's so funny. When you're working on a film with a director, what's the process of collaborating when you get a job and are doing the film score?
Slightly depends on when I get involved. Like there's
Okay.
some films when I did one feature, they contacted me 2 weeks before it had to go into mixing, which was crazy.
Wow.
But that project actually was a lot of fun to do, and like we can talk about that later as well because that established a collaboration with one of the directors that I always work with now. So I love
Okay.
working with her.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
it's basically like it usually starts with like a phone call or an email, or you meet someone and talk about a project. And then I think the most important part is the spotting session, where you basically watch the film. Usually I've seen it before, and you talk about every music cue. What should the music do? Where should it start? Where does it end? Basically make that roadmap for the music. And
Right.
if that is really well done, I think all the rest is kind of just me filling in.
Is it strange
colors.
watching a film with no music?
It is often.
Or are you just picturing it in your head already?
I mean, like sometimes you get a temp track, sometimes
Okay.
you get temp music in there, which like composers have this love-hate relationship with temp tracks because it influences you so much. And you can't get that out of your head anymore. You're just always like, oh, yeah, that's that
interesting.
melody. No, that's not me. Like, I'm here to write music. So,
Right.
So, but then temp
That's so
tracks can
true.
help a lot too. They can, I mean, it's basically a description. Like you work with someone who might not have that musical background, so they're not going to talk about like, why don't you use this chord progression or this instrument? They just like create this emotion, and sometimes just a temp track actually can help a lot to basically tell me what I need to be
Inspire.
doing. And yeah, some directors give me temp tracks. So one director refuses to give me temp tracks. Like she says, like,
yeah?
I don't want to influence you. I want you as like the musician you are, and I don't want to interfere with that creative process, which is kind of scary because you
Yeah.
get that blank film without anything. And all right, let's do a spotting session, but how do we start?
Do you have a preference of temp tracks versus not temp tracks?
I think it depends on the timeline. Like if I have a lot of time to like think about it, like sometimes I'm involved at the script stage or just the idea stage, then you
Right.
discuss ideas with the director over years before the film is realized or canceled forever.
True.
So I like that. I like that collaboration, and then like we usually still like create playlists on Apple Music or Spotify, just like to bounce ideas off each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Like sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes it really gets in the way because if it's a really well crafted temp track, it's
Yeah.
really hard to be better as a composer.
Yeah.
But it's also a good challenge. Like you got to be better than the temp. And there's also something called temp love. Like if you listen to something over and over again with a film, directors fall in love with the temp track.
Right.
So then
yeah.
you have to be
You're just used to it.
Yeah,
and
they
then-
just use it, and as soon as you make something else, then it's it's different and they might not like it anymore, which is an extra challenge. You have to be better than the loved temp track that might be in there.
100%. Have you ever had, or what's the experience with when you present your stuff to the director and they're not feeling it, or they want it to go a different way, or they need something more for it? Do you then take those notes and start again, kind of thing, or what's the
pretty
it's
much
just a back and forth?
It's a back and forth. That's what
I would be like, here it is, there you go, and I'd be like, bye.
No, it's a back and forth. That's what I love about it too.
Yeah.
Like, it's like because sometimes like I'm not 100% certain, like what my intuition tells me might not be the right thing. I was like, this might work, but maybe not. And then the director either says, oh, this is great, which is the scary part. If they like it right away, it's like, no, this can't be good yet. We need to like have a few rounds of back and forth to get the best out of that cue. And sometimes they say, I don't like this at all, which is fine. In the beginning, it was like heartbreaking. I just like created this beautiful piece of music in my mind. And then you put it out there, and then
you're like, nope. You're like, I'll just save this for another film then.
Like, okay, and now I'm just used to it. I love it. I mean, it's fine. Like it's not about me. It's about what I bring to the film.
That's
so like,
true.
and they know what they want for the film. And sometimes they don't, and sometimes it's a collaboration to find out together what elevates the film in terms of music. So like I mean, right now I usually tell the directors like, if you don't want that cue, or if you like, you don't have to agree with everything I send you. And
how do you get jobs? Do you pitch for jobs? Do you send them like your portfolio of music to them, or how does it work?
Like sometimes I reach out to like on Facebook or something, like whenever someone like posts for composers. I should be pitching more. Like the recent projects have all been like word of mouth, which is good. Like I still work with the same people and they keep coming back to me, which is great.
Yeah.
And then like film festivals. Like I remember I think it was 2 years ago at Blood in the Snow. I had a short film that was played there, and I met a lot of people there. And now I'm working with 2 or 3 of the people I had a beer with during the networking event after that screening on their project. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot about it, just making connections.
And then tell us the story about you got the 2 weeks to hire, and now you work with them a lot. You mentioned it earlier. Tell me that now.
So that's like the producer back then was Gianna Mariocco. Like she studied in Lethbridge. That I met her on the first feature I scored. She was working on set as well, and then we kind of like she worked with other people, and at some point I got a call from her, Thilo, what are you doing this week and next week? And like, I'm off to a conference in New York City next week, and what do you need? And in the beginning it was just like remixing a few cues of the film, of the score that was already there, because they had to recut everything and so on. So it turned out that I more or less rescored the entire film in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So I remember like taking my little keyboard to a hotel room in New York and like going to the conference and coming back and like working on a few cues on my laptop and a keyboard. But it was also a lot of fun. It was amazing because you don't have time to second guess everything you do. I
do like that.
You just have to
keep on going.
You just go. Like you make one cue, you get it approved by the post-production supervisor, and you just move on to the next.
Yeah.
So super intense 2 weeks, and I was almost sad when it was over, and you fall in this like, okay, what am I going to do now? Like,
okay, well, what's next?
So this is it.
Yeah.
So and then basically ever since I've been working with Gianna, like some short films. We worked on a couple of documentaries.
Amazing.
Yeah, she flew me into Venice last year to record sounds on a haunted island for one of her projects.
No way.
It's a super nice collaboration, and creatively we're very much on the same page. So.
What was that experience like, filming sounds on a
It was
haunted island?
Amazing. So basically, like the whole idea was, I don't want to tell too much about the film. It's still in development.
Okay, yes.
But it was about like a place in Venice, because she lives in Venice now, and that's one of the most haunted places on earth, if you like believe Google and YouTube. And so like when she told me like, I'm planning this film about this island, and start thinking about the music, and then I Googled like, I don't want to go on to that island. But then I was also like, but we should record sounds there that I use in my music.
Yes.
And then she was like,
That
we
is
just said, "All right,
such a cool idea.
we'll do it. So she flew me into Venice for, we also did some proof of concept shootings. I was doing sound on set while I was there. And then on the island, I was like a little kid, like recording every sound I could find. It's like this deserted place with a lot of trash lying around and hospital beds that you could bang on. And so I basically like sampled the island, which was, it was amazing.
That's awesome. That is such a fun creative process. Because when I think music composing, I'm thinking, creating it at home, but going into the actual place and recording sounds.
I mean, most of the time you work at home. I mean, most of the time, but I always try to make it a little bit more unique to that specific project.
Yeah.
Because now we're going to use sounds in the score that no one else has, that are actually like part of that island that the documentary is going to be about.
That's so cool and so unique. So, do you know what that documentary is going to be called?
It's still untitled on IMDb. I think
we'll let you know when it drops.
Jen is changing a few things around. Might actually have another location come into play as well.
Okay.
So, but
nice.
It's been pretty fun.
Excellent. Well, by the time this podcast airs, and if we have any more information, we'll let you know. But that's so cool. And you have music coming out next week? Next week, our time. It'll be a couple weeks before your time. But tell us about it.
Yeah, so it's basically for Halloween. It's that film that I scored in 2 weeks. So then Gianna at some point said we should probably release the soundtrack. It actually was someone contacted me on Facebook. I would probably say my first fan. A German guy reached out. I watched the film, The Curse of Audrey Earnshaw, and I loved the film, but I really like the music. Where can I hear it? And I was like,
amazing.
I can send you files. So I sent him files. He was super grateful.
That is so nice.
And then I contacted Gianna, maybe we should release the soundtrack. I don't know. I don't remember writing any of it because it was all in 2 weeks. So, and then at some point she said, let's do it for Halloween, for the 4-year release anniversary.
Oh, that's so cool.
I've been listening to old music of mine, not remembering it, and deciding, okay, this is good enough, this is terrible, and compiling that soundtrack. So
nice, amazing, congrats. That's
thanks.
So cool.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I think it's my first official soundtrack release as well, so I'm curious to hear what people think of it.
And where can people listen to it?
Anywhere, Apple Music, Spotify, all
Alrighty, beautiful.
Those,
We'll put some links below.
Yes.
That's awesome. That is so cool. Do you have a favorite movie for sound score?
That's always the most difficult question. That's a tough one. Because I find music is best when you don't notice it. When you just when you are so immersed in the story that when people ask me how was the music, I don't know. I just watched an amazing film.
Yeah.
I think that's when the film music really did its job. Because as soon as you start hearing it, you just it might be in the way. I mean, sometimes it's good. You need to hear the music in between coming up and having the melodies. But I think in most situations, you don't want to consciously hear the music that's supporting the story.
Yeah. Are you going to start analyzing it do you sit in the theater and you're picturing
maybe
what they did with it? That kind of thing?
I think, sometimes I'm going that's weird. Or sometimes
weird place to put drums.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes in the end, my perception might change. That's actually pretty cool that they use drums because they reuse that here, and it totally makes sense. So I mean, you always start analyzing, but thankfully I can still listen to music and watch films without that analytic brain, which a lot of colleagues don't have anymore.
Does it just go away?
Yeah, because you always start thinking about this could have been done differently, or this could have been done differently.
Right. And so you don't have a favorite?
I don't think so.
Do you have a favorite genre that you like to watch for inspiration?
Also really anything.
Just story-driven stuff.
Yeah, it's the same when people ask me what's your favorite genre of music. I was like, anything as long as it's well done.
Yeah, true.
When I still had a lot of CDs, it was a complete mix of anything.
Yeah.
Where someone else would have walked in and you're crazy. Because
what collection is
electronics,
this?
Rock, contemporary classical music.
Yeah.
Just a complete disaster.
For sure. That's so funny. And you've worked with Ubisoft as well?
Yeah, I worked
Did I read
with,
that correctly?
yeah, so it's basically during COVID, I started a company focusing on immersive music productions with
Okay.
a colleague of mine from Madrid in Spain. And it's basically like a company to help immersive productions be more immersive from the sound perspective. So,
Oh.
and what we did with them, like we worked on the Assassin's Creed Symphonic Adventure. So basically, my colleague, my co-founder, he worked on a lot of the live shows with symphony played live
Yeah.
and like film is being played in the background. He did the live sound for them.
Wow.
And then like he was asked to do the same for the Assassin's Creed Symphonic Adventure from a French company called Overlook Events.
Okay.
And then he contacted me, should we try to make this immersive so that we're not just having the sound effects from the front, but then we're going to have them fly around the hall. So we designed the speaker setup around the hall for the premiere.
Wow.
And it was so much fun because Ubisoft then sent us the audio files. All of a sudden on my computer during preparation, I had like all the Assassin's Creed sounds that I like. And like, I have this sound here, I can play it as often as I like on my laptop.
That is so
And then we
cool.
spatialized the sounds live in this case, just for the premiere in Paris. And
Wow. That's amazing. That is so cool.
it's been a lot of fun. Like also, I don't do a lot of live sound. Like
Yeah.
it's scary. I love being in my studio, just working on things.
Yeah.
But that one was pretty exciting. Yeah.
That is so cool. Do you have a favorite project that you've worked on so far as film?
Just trying to think. I think probably one of the recent ones that's hopefully going to be released next year, called A Portrait of Redemption in 5 Acts, which is about a former mafia boss of the Venice Mafia who spent 36 years, I think it's 36 years, I don't want to say anything wrong, a long time in prison. And now he's trying to do good by working with children and basically just trying to do something good to the world to make up for his past. So
wow.
So it basically portrays like Venice when he grew up and how he got into crime. In the beginning, just like stealing boats to go on a tour with his brother, like small things, and then how he got into the heavier crimes and became like the Doge of Venice. And it was actually like a very emotional film. And I really liked scoring it because it was such a personal story. And then when I actually went to Venice last year, like I met him and he thanked me for the music.
way.
And I was like, that moment I stood there this is your music. And yeah, it was very touching when he thanked me for the music for his story. And so that means like, I probably interpreted it okay.
I'm going to tear up right now. That's incredible to be thanked for telling your story and like putting a soundtrack to someone's life. That's crazy. And then, ooh,
it was definitely crazy. And that was
so
also with
cool.
Gianna, the one I mentioned before.
Yeah.
So that was one of the projects we worked on together. And also in terms of the collaboration, because now we work actually at that stage when like she gets me involved pretty early in like even before the final cut, which is good because then I can think about music. And then she might adjust things in the cut to accommodate my music, which is
Oh, really?
like that doesn't happen very often. So when I say like this is something really important, let's add like a little bit of music here to like drive those emotions home. And that's a great idea. Let's do that. I'm going to add in some B-roll, and so like that back and forth is like so much fun to work with. And even though it hasn't been released, and I have no idea, there were some test screenings in Italy, and people loved the film in the theaters. Amazing. But like even though like we don't know where it's going, like just in terms of the workflow, like that process has been so much fun.
That's
To
incredible.
work with her.
That is amazing. I'm curious about too, just from the business side. When you get a job, do you have set rates for your job, or is it dependent on the project and their budget, or how do you go about doing that?
Right now, because I still consider myself in the early stage of my career.
Yeah.
It's like whatever they have if the project's good.
Right.
And like sometimes as a music project, I mean, I try not to work for free anymore because like I've done that enough to like get stuff on my portfolio, I think. So, but it depends on like what budget people bring, also what kind of genre it is, and then based on that, like I can decide how much time I can spend on it. So it's,
that's true too.
so like I mean, there's like a member of the Screen Composers Guild of Canada. They have their rate suggestions, but there's like nothing is set in stone. Like, because it's, especially in indie film, it's so different. Some of them actually have a decent music budget, and some of them have almost no music budget, and they try to like find it somewhere along
they're
the
like,
way.
we forgot about post-production budget.
Yeah, exactly. So that happens. Like, and then usually, like, I mean, I also find like sometimes work with deferred payments. Like, as long as the project is good and I see some value in it, and the process is fun. So
Okay,
and
nice.
I was able to always do that because I still had the professor job, and now I'm a bit more careful about doing too much.
Because you
on
don't
that
teach
end.
anymore. You're fully into composing now.
Yeah,
right?
I teach a few students.
Oh, okay.
Still, but,
right.
it's
On
mainly,
the
like,
online and
it's
stuff like that.
mainly freelancing, composing, and production now.
Was that a scary switch for you? Or were you ready to take the leap?
Kind of. I think I was ready. It was basically, I mean, in the end, they didn't renew my contract, which was a blessing in disguise, because I wouldn't have quit a 10-year job. I would have been up for tenure now.
Okay, yeah.
So, and like, I noticed that I wasn't 100% happy. Like, I came home after teaching, being extremely excited and happy, like, this is the best job in the world. And then I came home after meetings and university politics, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I had my resignation letter on my desktop, like, ready to be sent any moment. And I never sent it, so like, that's problem solved itself. And like, it was scary in the beginning when I found out they didn't renew my contract. Like, oh, and then now, like, it's the best thing that could have happened to me.
Oh, that's so good to hear. I love that little letter. Was like, I've written a few of those. I'm like, this is just need to hit send. But it's scary going from like a stable income to, I hope this works.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, so far it's been going pretty well, and it's also like, I mean, I'm way happier. I'm way more confident about the work I'm doing now, because it's my job now. It's not the thing I do at the side on the weekends in the evenings.
Yeah.
So I think I think it was the right thing that should have happened to me.
Yeah, 100%. That's amazing. Well, good for you. Because I think that is one of the most terrifying things about being a creative and switching to a not steady income per se.
Yeah,
is that you're like,
exactly,
how do I make this work?
Yeah.
But that's awesome. And how does your brain work when you get a piece of film? Let's say there's no temp tracks on it. Do you kind of just hear it in your head, or?
It's like, I usually try to find the tone first. Basically, like, which instruments we're going to use, which, like, I program some synth sounds to like match the story. So and like create, basically, like, choose the colors that I want to use for the entire film. Often in collaboration with the filmmaker. Like, I might send like a minute of, not even like for a specific scene, just like, what do you think of this? Or what do you think of this?
They reply, no strings.
Something like that. Or I hate guitar. Like, okay, no guitar. So basically finding that sound, and then I watch the film. Like,
is that the equivalent to like a mood board kind of thing?
Yeah, I guess so.
Like a sound board.
Yeah, probably.
For lack of a better word.
I guess that's probably a good equivalent.
It's like totally. the overall tone of the film.
Yeah, exactly. And then I work like with melodies, and like, sometimes I still sketch with pencil and paper on a piano, or sometimes I do it right in the computer. Sometimes I do it like, I have an EWI, an electronic wind instrument, because I'm a wind player. So I like just improvise on that while I watch the film to come up with ideas.
Oh, that's cool.
And for a long time, I always thought it was a problem that I didn't have that one way of composing, like at the keyboard or like with pen and pencil.
You thought there's like one way to do it, or that there's like 5 different ways and you hadn't selected your style?
Exactly. And now I find, just like, if I'm stuck there, I just go over to the piano, or if I'm stuck there, I take my clarinet. It's like, just because my brain works differently depending on whether I'm sitting in front of a screen or whether I'm sitting in front of a piano. And I think that's now I just that's just how I work, I guess.
It's like getting around writer's block almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Switch up the method.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
And then I listen to a lot of music. Like, usually my day starts with like walking the dog and listening to music that were given to me as references, like, just to get into the mood of whichever film I'm working on.
Okay, nice.
And then at some point he's happy, you got all the treats at the coffee shops, and I got my coffee, and then go home and start composing. So.
Nice. Oh, that's amazing. That is a really cool way to do it. I like that there's multiple different ways to do it, because in my head, if like writer's block, you just sit there staring at your paper being like, it'll come. But this way you have like a different tool and a different avenue of creating.
And the deadlines help. Like, sometimes you just have to like, I gotta write 3 minutes or 5 minutes of music today. Like,
so
no
true.
time to wait for any inspiration or anything to hit you. You just gotta
Yeah,
try
and that's
things
why
out.
we like there's no time to doubt or think about it
you
or
just
question
go
it.
Go with an idea and see where it takes you. Like follow your intuition. My first composition teacher, he always said, like, when you compose, switch off everything you know and just follow your intuition. And then you can like turn on all that music theory that you study, like if you're stuck or when you want to check if your intuition served you well. And like, I mean, that's easier said than done, because as soon as you create something, oh no, that's a parallel fifth chord. Like, you can't do this. Like, because you studied all that music history there.
Yeah.
So.
That's so interesting, because we have that with, I was just talking about that in the last interview with actors, is that we get told like so much theory, and then you rehearse, and then you're told to forget everything and then just go with it. So it's so interesting to hear it from music composer side too, of just like, you learn everything, and then you throw it away and try to create. It's like switching from like the left brain to the right brain.
Right, yeah.
Almost kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah.
That is so cool. Do you have a favorite composer? Or composers?
It changes almost every week, I would say. Like from the classical composers, I like Ravel, like just the colors he used in the orchestra. Then I love Berio, contemporary Italian composer, like 20th century composer. He doesn't live anymore, but also the way he composed, like made use of the instruments in like non-conventional ways, basically expanding the sounds of instruments. It's amazing. Stravinsky, just for the archaic. So all the classical stuff, and then also like all the big name film composers. Dario Marinelli, he did Atonement, like I really like his style. Or Ramin Djawadi, like he composed for Game of Thrones, like a German-Iranian composer.
I was just listening to that soundtrack the other day. We were playing a board game, and I was like, Game of Thrones soundtrack would be perfect for this setting.
It's amazing. And also, like, I just love how he plays the story. Like everything he does, like, just fits into the story. And I really like how he, as a film composer, how he works that.
Yeah,
it's
nice. That's awesome.
But so that changes frequently, and then here's someone else's work, like, oh, this is amazing, like, you might be my new favorite composer.
Right? That's amazing. I love that. You said that you like the colors that they use. Do you see music in colors?
No, I don't.
Okay, I was like, hold on, because you said, but colorful as a describing.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Timbre,
but some people have those special skills. We're just like, I see. All right, people, you can picture things in your head, and some people can't picture things in their head.
Right, yeah.
That I was wondering. I was like, do you see in color?
No, I don't see colors. No, I think I call them colors because the German word for timbre is Klangfarben, which is basically sound colors.
Oh, really? And that's cool.
The Dutch word too. I studied in Holland. Is Klankkleur. So
okay, so it would be the colors of the wind.
Sound colors.
Excellent, nice. That is so cool. And what's your goal or your dream with your career?
That's a good question.
Like, would you like to do big blockbusters and make it to Hollywood and get an Oscar for composing, or are you
I mean, can't hurt, right? I mean, also in terms of like working with a larger budget would be nice at some point.
Yeah.
But also right now, like, I just enjoy the process so much.
Yeah.
So like, to me, it doesn't really matter if it's a short film or.
You're happy doing the thing.
I just really love the process of composing and working with people on their stories, and it's like whether I do that on a super high level or in like the lowest budget tier that's out there, like it's still fun. I mean, it doesn't pay the mortgages if you don't make much money.
That's right. But so pay your bills with it.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, I mean, it's happening right now, more or less.
Exactly. So you're doing the thing. I love that.
I guess so, yeah.
But that's awesome. I know you said it's based on story and whether you like it or not, but do you lean towards more nonfiction versus fiction?
No, I think I like fiction more.
Yeah?
And the documentaries I did, that Mafia documentary, it was total like fiction. It was like, and actually Gianna told me, like, I don't want this to be scored like a documentary.
Oh,
like,
okay.
I want you like to drive the emotions, and it's not a documentary, it's a portrait.
Right.
So Yeah, I think
Okay,
I
nice.
like the stories of fiction more than nonfiction often, but in this case it was completely different because
Oh, okay.
it felt like fiction. Like that story is just
Yeah.
crazy. I read his books as well, and when I read this, like a person actually lived through this, like had all these crazy stories in their lives, and it's like, yeah, to me it felt like fiction, but I guess it was nonfiction.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, nice. And what do you got going on? What are you working on right now? Are you allowed to talk about anything you're working on
Yeah,
right
I
now?
guess so. Right now, I mean, we're still like working on that haunted island thing. We're still like in the final stages of like changing a few things on the portrait, on the mafia documentary. Just trying to think what's.
How long typically, like in a perfect world, because I know you've done 2 weeks and you've done longer from when you're at like idea phase. What is your like preferred time for a film? Like let's say it's your typical length of film. How long would you like to work on it?
Like just for the composing stage
Yeah.
or for conceptualizing and everything as well? I think composing stage is probably easier to quantify.
Yeah, probably.
in a
Yeah,
way.
probably composing stage because the beginning depends on the project, I guess.
Yeah, I think probably a couple of months would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
3 months, which is like that nice balance between having a deadline and not having to worry about it for a long time.
Yeah, that's true. They're like, you have a whole year. I will leave it to the last 3 months.
But having a bit of additional time is always nice. I just worked like on a very indie feature with a director who was actually very good working with a composer. I don't know if he had done it before, but he basically, first of all, he came in with an amazing temp track. And I'm like, okay, everything fits perfectly. Like it's gonna be hard for me to make it better.
Yeah.
And so he had a good reference for me, and then like he gave me plenty of time. He said, okay, I have until October to do this. Like, take your time. And I didn't have like, it was just additional music. So it was like maybe 20 minutes of music in total. And I think I started in maybe July. So I had time to send him a cue, like wait for feedback, not think about it, listen to the cue, come back to the studio, like what did I do there? No, we got to do something different. So like basically refine it to make it work.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a luxury
Nice.
situation.
And for you, when working with a director, what helps when working with a music composer?
I think having an idea of what the music should be doing and just knowing the story. Like,
Rather than just being like, here's my project,
yeah,
do
exactly.
the music.
or like sometimes it's even worse, like do this kind of music and then use a clarinet here and use this there. Like you should be composing. Like, you don't need me.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
That's fair.
I think that having that feedback, that open mind,
Yeah.
but also like saying when something's not right is pretty important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably like, I often ask questions about the story. Like for the Mafia documentary, I always spoke with Gianna, like, what's the story behind this story? Like, what did they do back then, the twins growing up in Venice? So, and like, she's like, our spotting sessions was basically you asking me things about the story. I'm like, yeah, I guess that's really important so that I know what to do with the music.
Yeah, it gets you a better idea of mood and where you want to take the viewer with the music.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Nice.
And yeah, sometimes it's also nice to be involved early on. I just started working with a
Which
film.
I would never think about. I would never be like, let's in pre-production talk to the music person. You can see I've made so many films in my life.
I mean,
but,
a lot of people don't think about composers.
Yeah, but that's good to know. Is like if early stages that it's beneficial.
Yeah, exactly. I just started working like similarly with a filmmaker from Winnipeg. I also met him at Blood in the Snow.
Okay.
And he told me about his horror feature. It was actually in Toronto for Imaginative last year. He reached out to me, like, let's talk about my film. I'm like, oh yeah, great, James, let's meet. And so we met, had a couple of drinks, and just started talking about creative stuff and not that much about his film. And then he like told me about his film. I was like, this is amazing. And I actually visited him over the summer, and we started recording sounds in the prairies. It's
nice.
It's a horror feature film that he's developing right now.
Okay.
And yeah, we've been becoming pretty good friends over this like creative process because we're very much like thinking creatively like along the same lines.
Yeah.
So it's I'm really looking forward to working on that project with him.
That's awesome. That's so
So
cool.
yeah, and he got me involved very early on, basically just over a few drinks while he was in Toronto, telling me about the project.
And that helps because then now you've got already sounds of the prairies.
Yeah, so it's kind of like it seemed like similar to like what we did with the Haunted Islands.
Yeah,
so like I told them
yeah.
about that project last year.
Yeah.
And they said like we should do the same for my film.
That's
Like, we gotta
so
like record
genius.
sounds over where that film is playing.
Yeah, that's so smart because I wouldn't think to do that, and I think that's such a good idea. I think you do that with all your films now.
Yeah, I'd love to. Like I love his work. He's an experimental filmmaker too, and everything
Yeah.
he does is just, it just looks amazing. An artist and experimental filmmaker from Winnipeg.
Nice. And so when working with a director, what is some things that's not beneficial when working with a music composer? Or things that you find challenging?
Most of the directors I work with are actually very good to work with. I think if you tell the composer too much what they should be doing in terms of the technical things, rather than talking about the story, because then you also take the composer's voice away. You basically like force them to basically, they can use AI for that. Like it's something, but if you want something more personal that like is
Takes away a little creative freedom.
yeah. So I think that's most important. So the feedback I usually like is where it's like, something's not happening here, or like here.
Like need to feel more tension.
Yeah, or like this needs to be a hit. Like, can we like erase this? And then I'm like, okay, I know what to do with that kind of. But like,
Nice.
add a bass clarinet here. It's like, no, you can't do a bass clarinet there because that's going to be covered up by the strings. So like the technical stuff then could be
Right.
like, sometimes it's a bit. I wouldn't say annoying because everyone's just trying to like make the best out of their film.
Yeah.
But the kind of feedback that I always like is kind of like along the story and like helping.
Yeah.
But also that's what I love about composing for film. Before I wrote for the concert hall, I was basically like sitting over a piece for a year and writing music. And then you go to the premiere, have a glass of wine, and then you get back to your lonely chamber writing music. So, and with film, it's like you always have someone to bounce the ideas off of. Like, you know, like, does this suck? No,
You
this is
like
good.
the collaboration
Yeah, it's so much
on
fun.
the story.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. When did you first know that you really liked story?
That's a good question.
Because it
actually.
seems like all of your answers are like you prefer story over technical, and you know how to improve it based on like feeling rather than a formula, kind of thing. And so I'm just curious as to
That's
when
a
you.
good question. I don't know if that happened at some point. I just
Yeah.
think that's what film music should be doing. I mean, that's like.
Yeah, that's true.
I remember actually I took a webinar at some point, and then someone there said, "You're not hired to write music. You're hired to create emotions." And I guess that's so true. Like,
Yeah.
no one cares about the music, like as long as the emotions are there, which is also good. Like sometimes you can just get away with like a long bass drone, and you can like write 3 minutes of music in half an hour, so you have way more time for the more complicated cues.
Yeah,
So,
that's true. You're there to help with the emotions.
yeah, exactly.
I like that. That's so interesting because it's true. I think it would be really weird to watch a film without any music to support what's happening. We're not used to silent films, I guess, is why.
Yeah. No, I actually also find that you got to decide when not to use music. I mean, that's also super important.
Yeah.
Like I keep coming back to that mafia film, but there was this one scene when I watched it, I was like, I've never seen anything like that before. Even like talking about it now, I get goosebumps because like I don't want to spoil that story. But I was really sitting like, and I called Gianna, or we texted, I don't know, like,
This scene is finished.
we're not going to use music here. And she said, I agree.
That's
Because
so
that scene was
cool.
so perfect on itself. Like any music I would have come up with would have destroyed that particular moment.
That's so important to know too.
Yeah, and then we sketched it so that like we have a lot of music going up before, so that we go into
And then it
silence
cuts
for
out.
that scene, and so.
Nice.
Yeah, but that's also part of the process that you have to decide when not to use music. I mean, obviously, as a composer, you want to write music,
Yeah.
but if a scene is perfect by itself, like, yeah, why should I interfere? I mean,
Yeah. And you really got to take ego out of that too, because I would be, because somebody would be like, but I could put music here. But yeah, if your priority is the story and emotions, then that voids out ego.
Yeah, I
Right.
don't think you should have an ego as a film composer,
creator.
as a creator,
Yeah.
as a collaborator. I think it's
Yeah.
not about yourself, it's about what you bring to the project.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I like being that background person anyway.
Yeah, I know. Which is so funny because I talk to so many actors who are definitely not background people, myself included. But yeah, I like that you enjoyed contributing to the film and being in the background.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's really nice. It's refreshing. But yeah, that's awesome. What are, in your opinion, to be a good composer, what are some necessary qualities that you have to have?
I have no idea.
To enjoy
If
music.
I knew I'd be a composer.
You are a composer.
So that's a good. I think like not having that ego. Like it's not about you. I mean, then the technical skills, like basically like the mixing, like the music production skills. I think that helps a lot too, because especially when you start out, that's all yourself. Like you don't have a mixing engineers, you don't have a recording engineer, don't have a mastering engineer. I always work with the same mastering engineer though. Like got to give a shout out to Dave Horrocks, Infinite Wave Mastering.
Shout out.
Just mastered that The Curse of Audrey Earnshaw soundtrack. And like whenever I send him my music and comes back, he's like, did I write this? This sounds professional now. So like
Nice.
he's a wizard. Like so like I always like try to get any project I work on to Dave, because he's doing so well in his job.
Nice.
And he's great to work with too. But yeah, so like in the beginning you might not have the budget for a mastering engineer, or you have to mix yourself and all of that stuff. So all these technical things are good. Then having a good intuition for what might work and what might not work. I mean, and a lot of different paths work. I mean, that's the beauty of scoring film. Like if you give one scene to 3 different film composers, it could be completely different and it could all work. So there's not one right way of doing it.
That'd be kind of a cool little competition thing to do.
Yeah, we did that when I studied. Like we
Yeah?
always like had to they gave us a short film or something, and like you had to write
so
for it, and then you
fun.
talked about it, and it's super interesting to see.
That is so cool. Because it would change, it could change feeling and tone and mood depending on what music you go with.
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
Oh,
So yeah,
that's
having
cool.
the technical skills, the intuition, understanding the story, I guess. We're coming back to story again. So, and working with people. I mean, that's also like what I hope why people call me again, because they enjoyed working with me. I mean, there's so many people who could technically do the job. And like you want to work with the people who you enjoy working with, right? Because you spend a lot of time with them. So I think that's pretty important.
Yeah, I think it is important, especially when it's so collaborative. Like there is a lot of back and forth. So if they're being a jerk about it, you're not.
And also just being honest. If someone tells you like do this, and it's like, I'm going to be honest with you. I've never composed in that genre, but I'm going to do my research. Give me 2 days. I'm going to come back with something that might work or might not work. And if you fire me, that's totally fine too. So,
Yeah. Have you ever been fired from a job?
I have not.
That was always really good.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, they always say you're not a real composer until you have been fired from a job. But it hasn't happened to me yet. So like, I'm working on it.
I love that you're working on it, because I would avoid it like the plague.
I mean, it'll happen at some point. And I mean, also like,
because it does.
Yeah, and it's also like, I'm totally fine with like people choosing someone else. Even like if I'd worked with someone and they choose for a specific project like someone else because of this style, it's totally fine, because like my style might not fit every film they make in the future. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I find even with like any creative job, it is just what serves the story best. It's not personal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was one of the things like I had to learn, that it's not about my personal music. Like when someone critiques it and they're like, "This is terrible." I mean, they usually say it friendlier, but then like, in my mind, like, "Yeah, I knew it sucked." But like, but it's not about me or my music. It's basically just what fits or it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And it's also a matter of taste, like interpretation. Like for some people might say this is amazing. Other people might say this totally destroys the story. Who knows? So
Yeah,
it's
for
so
sure.
personal too at some point.
That's true. And what's the best advice you've got from somebody for this career you have chosen?
I mean, yeah, we already talked about that. My first composition professor who said, like, use your intuition and then switch on the theory when you get stuck.
Yeah.
But also just that you like got to stop at some point. Like, I mean, I remember like it was the first feature I scored in Canada. I just moved to Canada, and I was super critical about the music. And I actually used a pseudonym for it. Like, I didn't want to give my name. Also, at that time, I was like creating very experimental classical music.
Okay.
And like I was always saying like, oh, we can make this better, we can do this, and we can do this. It was like a very low budget, like partly student, partly professor film back in Lethbridge.
Okay.
And then at some point the director said like, we all just do the best we can at this moment in time. And then we have to move on to the next project. And that still resonates with me. So like any project, even though sometimes it's not in my hands, if I only have 2 weeks or like a day to score something or whatever. So like I just try whatever I can, like be as good as I can in that moment, and then it's going out there and I got to move on to the next. So
that's so true.
I think that's
because it is one of those things where you could just keep adding, and then subtract, or no, I'd change this, and it could go on forever.
Yeah, my mastering engineer always says like, music's never finished, you just abandon it. And I think that's actually a very good, like at some point it's just
So true.
That's the piece, like go out there, we're gonna move on to something else.
Music's never done, you just abandon it.
So,
That's so true.
you just got to find the right moment to abandon it.
Yeah,
It's like, okay, done.
the easiest parting possible. Do you ever listen back to stuff that you've previously worked on and go, oh my God, that was crap?
I try to avoid it.
Avoid listening to older stuff, yeah?
Yeah, no, I mean like not consciously. It's just like I think I
Just
know
on to
what
the
I did. I mean,
next.
now for this soundtrack, I had to re-listen to a few of the cues and or
Right.
like basically the entire film and deciding what we wanted to put on there. And yeah, it was not as bad as I anticipated. So it's because I'm
Nice.
super critical about my work usually. I'm
Yeah.
just like, this can always be better. And you compare yourself like to the high budget films all the time.
Constantly.
And then you just go like, yeah. But yeah, that one, that soundtrack is actually better than I anticipated too, because Dave mastered it. Like
Shout out, Dave. That's awesome. Do you ever, when you're working on a film, listen to it so much that by the time you've heard it, your own work for like the 80th time through this project, you're like, I can't, or it must suck? Because like as a comedian, I'll do jokes and do jokes and do jokes, and it's the same joke. So by the time I've practiced it and I'm gonna go hit the stage, I'm like, this isn't even funny anymore.
Yeah.
Do you have something
I have
similar?
that all the time.
Yeah.
Like in the beginning, like you think, oh, this works. So you got to like hold on to that first idea.
Yeah.
And then at some point, yeah, that's why you have directors, I guess. Like,
That's true.
like, is this
Trust
still okay?
other people's opinions.
Or like I get my partner like, listen to this cue, how does it work? Like,
Yeah.
and I can't tell anymore, and she has to come downstairs and it's good. Sometimes she says, and then I go, oh, it's not good. Kind of mad.
What do you mean?
I'm mad, like, or disappointed for like half a minute, and like she leaves, and yeah, she's right. I got it. So she's always the first approval person.
Nice. Is she into music as well?
No, she used to play clarinet. She's a
Just has
behavioral
been around
scientist.
you enough
She's
to know.
gotten pretty good in like differentiating reverbs.
Yeah.
Where, like in the beginning, it's like I don't hear a difference. I'm like, I think I like this reverb more. So I've trained her.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome.
So, but yeah, I have that all the time, and asking people for feedback is important. But yeah, it's like, yeah, all the time, because watching a scene over and over again is also like at some point that scene doesn't mean anything to you anymore. Like you just go, okay, it's like I know exactly.
There's no
what's
story, no
happening.
feeling anymore.
That's why, like, the first time you watch a film, like, I actually learned that when I studied composition for film. It's like the first time you watch a film, hold on to all the emotions you go through, because you can only watch it once for the first time.
Do you then make notes of of what you felt?
So I take notes, like trying to not like get lost in my notes while still watching the film, and just say like, this is a moment, like I felt something here, or like sometimes it's even like you just start being sad and like, okay, why? Okay, something happened here, so that you like can hopefully trace that back for like the spotting and then for the composition.
Oh, that's so helpful.
So because
after a while you're like, what do I feel here?
you watch it over and over again.
I feel nothing anymore.
Yeah, especially like a gross horror film. I remember like
Yeah.
Audrey, like there was one scene where someone loses teeth because they cursed while brushing their teeth, and like,
I've had that nightmare.
I had to watch, yeah, me too. I had to watch that scene over and over again. It's still like, no.
Yeah, right? You're like, gotta go.
At some point, once you have the timing done, I switch off the screen usually and just focus on the music. So I don't have to, especially with stuff like that, you don't have to watch someone's teeth falling out for the 100th time.
It's so true. That's awesome. And do you have like any advice that you've gotten that you would say is the worst advice that you've received for music?
I don't think so. I mean, I can't think of anything.
I always block it out.
Yeah.
Even if I've gotten bad advice, I'm like, meh.
Yeah, I have no idea. Maybe I have. But then on the other hand, like everyone's creative process is different. So then I just like, okay, that doesn't work for me. Like, I mean, so that's probably why it doesn't, like I don't remember anything particular that was bad advice.
Fair enough.
Because I think you can like probably get something useful out of most people's opinion, or maybe not. And the not is just like not in my brain anymore.
Even if the not, you're just like, I'm doing good. Yeah, that's awesome. So I want to wrap up with a couple questions. Oh, and first of all, is there anything that you wanted to talk about that I didn't cover or ask you?
I mentioned James, right? It's mainly giving shout out to James.
Shout out, James. I remember Dave.
We can talk about a screening I'm going to tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we're going to a Bell TV series I scored. They screened it in Hamilton at the film festival. So.
Oh yeah, that's happening right now. Yeah. And so, and it was a series that you scored.
Yeah, like a Bell 5 TV1 series.
Nice.
It was actually, I mean, that's how everything connects. Like the post-production supervisor of that Audrey Earnshaw movie, George Mihalka, he did My Bloody Valentine. He, like ever since we never met in person, because back then he was post-production supervisor, I sent him the cues. He was amazing to work with because of all his experience, and we only had 2 weeks. And they're like, "How's this? Okay, approved. Change this." And it was basically a super nice, quick turnaround. And then we always wanted to meet because my studio is still down in the Niagara region, so I drive back and forth quite a bit. My partner works in Toronto.
Okay.
So. But like for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, like he was in Hungary, then I was over in Europe, like we never had the chance to actually meet in person.
No way.
And then earlier this year he gave me a call. I might have a small project, it's not paid super well, but I might need your music. Like we got the 3-episode Bell TV show going called Ominous, and
nice.
like it's on Bell TV, and like it was so much fun to work with him again, and actually meeting him in person now as well.
That's amazing.
So I'm looking forward to seeing him, and he's such a great person and to work with.
Oh, that's awesome.
And just a super nice guy. So like, yeah, I'm going to Hamilton to the film festival tomorrow to watch the cast and crew screening. I think it's public as well. All 3 episodes with like a champagne before and hanging out with some creative people.
Amazing. That is so cool. Congratulations on the premiere on the Bell series. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a fun process too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the funny thing for this one is like George used my music as temp track. Like,
oh, no
because
way.
he still had the Audrey stuff. And
yeah.
This sounds familiar. and so some of them was like this is good. Who wrote this? And I called him like, what music is that? He's like, this is you. I'm like, oh. And then I was like, because it was that like 2 weeks that I didn't remember every piece I wrote. So.
What a nice feeling.
Yeah, like, okay, maybe I don't suck.
I am okay. It's not bad. It's not bad. That's awesome. It's so cool. I love that. It's you. What a nice confirmation.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe that's the way to actually finally getting me to like my music,
that's
not knowing that it's me.
Forget that you wrote it and then listen to it and go, damn, that is really good. That's awesome. Do you like networking?
No. I mean,
yes, I love it. I hate it too.
Like I like talking to people.
Yeah.
Like it's so good. I mean, you just talk with people, like one-on-one. Totally fine with it, but going into a room like just for the sake of networking with that mindset, I have to network now.
Yes.
It's terrible.
Right?
That's why I love that Blood in the Snow network. It was not like that. People just like walked in there and started talking, and it didn't feel forced. It was just like a normal party.
Nice.
And I think that's why it worked out so well.
Yeah, yeah. There's a few like networking events that I found that are they're more relaxed and a very positive energy that I'm like, okay, this is great. So yeah, going into a party, and I just hate walking into a room and everybody's already in little groups and you're just like, I have to break into one of these groups. Who looks like they're not going to eat me? Nobody's going to eat me.
Let me take my phone so they don't look too lost.
Yeah, exactly. I look like a loser. But yeah, so I like that you don't like networking, but all of these jobs are from connecting with people.
Yeah, like most of the time I met them somewhere and we became friends or connected.
Yeah.
And also like the problem with me networking on an event like that is I usually like, when I enjoy talking to someone, I can stand there for the rest of the night and just talk to that person.
Yeah,
and like we talk about not
true.
just like projects, but just anything.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, I think that works too, like because you connect as human beings, and they might not have a product for you right now, but they might have something for you in the future. While if you walk and talk to everyone, like they might not even remember you.
Because you haven't made that genuine connection.
I think that's,
and then you get a feel for, do I even want to work with this person? If you can't hold a conversation with them for 2 minutes, you might not want to have it.
Exactly.
We have nothing in common.
Exactly. And I'm stuck here.
Yeah, exactly. I have to go to the bathroom.
I think it's so important. Like also, like I remember one instance I was at the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco because I was thinking about like maybe scoring some games. I think it was actually there from the university, like because I was preparing for a game audio course.
Right.
And I was talking to this developer from like, there was an indie developer conference, which was amazing. All like little games, like super creative, and some of them not finished, some of them more finished. And there was one game called Clockwork from an Australian developer, and I just ended up playing it. And it was like the time-bending puzzles, and the artwork was all hand-drawn. It was just beautiful, and I liked talking to the guy. And I was standing there for at least half an hour and just like talking about the project. They had a composer on board, so I didn't care, but it was just a cool project. So one guy walked by and he basically just dropped his business card, like, here's my card, like I do music sound. And this guy just, like the guy from the developer just took the card and put it into one like jar. Yeah. And then like we exchanged cards and he put my card into a separate one. And I was like, okay, so anyway, and then 3 years later, I thought the game had long been released. They called me like whether I would be able to score that game.
No way.
So I think making that like connection about projects that like you're really interested in, I think that's, I mean, maybe
showing
it's not,
passion about
maybe it doesn't give you as much work as you could be getting, but it's also just feels way more real in a way. It's like more me. Yeah,
that's good. That's awesome. I like that. And because it feels more personal, more like a deeper connection, and it just makes collaborating that much nicer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's awesome. Wicked. You've taken a lot of courses and done a lot of schooling. Do you recommend that people go to school for this?
I think it depends on the personality, because I mean, you got to put in the hours and learn the stuff.
That's fair.
How you do it doesn't matter. I don't think anyone cares about the degree. I mean, I shouldn't be saying this as a former professor, but I mean,
we won't send this to the universities.
I was sometimes honest about like to my students as well. Like, I mean, it's great that you study here. Like, it's good to have the degree. Like, it can't hurt. In my case, I got a master's degree and that helped me like become a professor and teach there. Like, without that, I wouldn't have been qualified to do that. Yeah. But like, that's not going to get you the jobs. Like, it's like it allows you to learn. But just following a program in music composition or production is not going to like prepare you for the industry or make you that industry expert. Yeah. So it
doesn't help you network either.
No, exactly. And I think like as long as you learn, like some people need that structured learning. For me, it was great because I wasn't disciplined enough or not like focused enough.
I was going to say, I would need deadlines.
Yeah, exactly. Or I would like need to know what information is good and what is bad. Like, because there's so much, especially about audio, there's so much bad information out there. And like when you see like a post like, like in music production, the piano should always be placed like 50% to the left. And then people say, I didn't know that. And all the comments you go like, and you read this is nonsense. Like, this is complete nonsense. So
we're going to have to do that next episode. We're like, tell me all of the good and bad information.
Yeah, so there's so much bad information out there. So that's like, you have to filter through that. But if you can do that on your own, there's no need to go to school. Like, I mean, you just have to learn what you need to learn.
Right.
And for some people, I think schooling's great. For other people, it's not great. I mean,
Fair.
as long as you learn what you need to be doing, I think it's fine. It doesn't matter how you get that experience and that knowledge.
Nice. Okay, wicked. I have 2 final questions for you. First one is, what is some advice that you would tell your younger self?
Probably.
I'll give you a minute.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a nice light question.
Yeah, I think it's probably have a plan and follow that plan, because I think in my case it was like I studied and then I got a job at the radio, and I remember back then my teachers, when I started composition, they said you got to be a bit more ambitious, and I actually had to Google ambitious. I still remember. So because I told them I have a job at the radio, which was like assistant production job, just listening to music, drinking coffee, and evaluating it. I learned a lot from just listening to music, but they saw like you can do more than that. I was like, oh yeah, sure. And then I became professor, which kind of also just happened. Like when I tell that to my partner, who's a behavioral scientist, a PhD, they're like, other people work years to just get a job at a university, and to you it just happened.
Yeah.
But so everything just kind of just happened without me like making very conscious choices of where I wanted to be in the future.
Okay.
And I still don't know. I mean, it worked out for me.
Yeah,
but,
so far so good.
But I think it probably would have helped if I had some kind of plan of what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And then probably be a belief, like trust in that what you do is okay or good or whatever you want to call it. Like just be a bit more self-confident.
Yeah, I think that it'll be okay, especially financially. Like when we talk about going from being a professor and a steady salary to switching to doing freelance and work, that takes a lot of trust, and that everything will be okay. Like that's a lot of trust.
Yeah,
it's just a lot of trust.
And take risks. I think that's another thing which I never did before. I was like, no, I got to do this, so that I always have work. And like, maybe I'm not good enough to actually freelance, and like all that self-doubt. I think if you like go back 15 years, I think just do what you do, keep doing it, and it's fine.
Yeah, nice. I like that. And what would you title, if you could give this chapter in your life a title, what title would you give it? Or if you could music score it, what would it sound like?
Probably very happy.
Good.
I mean, this year's been really, really good. Like really happy.
Nice.
So I don't know what title I would use. I got to come up. Like cue titles is another thing. Like I never can come up with good titles for the cues.
Yeah, we'll just do sounds. You can just send me what this feels like right now.
So I still remember there's one cue sheet. I don't know if it actually made it on there. Like where I couldn't remember the name of the other guy who was killed, and I just called the cue killing the other guy. Put it on the cue sheet. I think we might have changed it later on, but it was just like sitting on that cue sheet for a while, killing the other guy.
That's hilarious.
So coming up with the names, I'm terrible with that. So,
that's so funny. That's all right. It sounds happy.
It sounds pretty happy, yeah. So
that's
now, like ever since early this year, or actually like even like last year when I knew my contract would be ending at the university, I was shifting from this, oh my God, I just lost my job kind of, to, oh my God, now I can do whatever I want. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a different freedom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Nice. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so happy you reached out, because I love behind the scenes people that I can interview, because a lot of behind the scenes people are like, no camera, please.
That's usually what I do. I'm scared of the camera. I'm just not telling you.
Well, you played it off perfectly. So thank you so much for reaching out. This was fantastic. I learned so much about
thanks for having
music
me.
composition.
That's
awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Way more fun than I anticipated as a behind the scenes person.
Hey, hear that behind the scenes, people? That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast as much as I did. I have so much fun doing these podcasts, and I so love that you guys watch them. If you did like this episode, please hit like, comment below your favorite part, and be sure to subscribe. See you in the next interview.